Good evening and welcome to Tartan Skirmishes Tag Talk, the most content-free content on YouTube. Today we'll be discussing KillFactory XII, Planetfall, which was a game that myself, Joker, and Angel and Seven ran at quite short notice at Dishforth at the end of July. It was very warm, and what we're going to talk about today is what went well, what went less well, and what changes we kind of made on the fly because of various factors. David, thank you for inviting us back on your show.
Not a problem. I wanted to do an episode of Tag Talk on KillFactory XII, very much on the basis that the first video I ever done for the Tartan Skirmish channel was KillFactory XI, which did include single camera footage of the entire event and a very ad hoc interview with the pair of yous, like
in the
on the
hotel
morning,
room, yeah.
literally in the hotel room on
in
the
the
morning.
Brown Cow.
Yeah. And I thought,
and
how's
getting
he do this
kicked
morning?
out by housekeeping right at the end of it.
Yeah, exactly, with that chap at the door out, So yes, I'm very pleased to have both of yous on. Boneheed, of course, just because he was doing nothing else tonight.
I've got nothing better to do. I have no life. It's fine.
Yeah, I know.
I'll just talk about blasters all day.
That's fine there. So yeah, I did not. This is very much on short notice, but just try to fit everybody in before you two head off down to 28 darts later this weekend. So very much looking forward to hearing all about that, no doubt, on another episode. But do you want to sort of give a brief overview of what the actual format for it was meant to be?
So we've kind of talked about running a KillFactory event in Dishforth for a while, pretty much since I've wanted to run games in Dishforth because it's the kind of site that I cut my teeth on playing airsoft. I love the site in general. It's a fantastic site. It's got a lot of flexibility. It's got a lot of good kind of different play areas, and it really lends itself to kind of mission-based gameplay because you can do different missions in different areas. Originally, there was going to be an Ace Strike Force game day at the end of July. Ace Strike Force tends to run on the last weekend of every month, and for reasons not worth going into here, Spartan was unable to do a weekend that weekend. And it's like, well, no one, that means the next game anyone's going to get is Foam Fest. And a lot of us from up north aren't necessarily able to get all the way down to Foam Fest. So I kind of messaged Joker and Angel in the team chat and was like, hey guys, how do you feel about us running a game? And Joker went with 3 weeks notice. I'm like, yep. Cool. Yeah, fine. We're up for it. Why not? And so the original plan was that it was a continuation of the storyline from KillFactories 10 and 11, which was that basically a crew on a spaceship, which was the represented by the sort of Foundry Seekabee arena. Half the crew had mutinied. There was fights. There was mission-based gameplay, and at the end of it, they let out a horrible monster, and we played Infection with me with a full kind of Predator mask and a Proton pack, and it was a lot of fun. And so this was essentially the continuation of it. Was basically the idea that after the crew had left the ship had kind of crash landed onto the planet, and this was two teams of scavengers fighting over the remains of the ship. It was very kind of Chronicles of Riddick kind of idea. And so originally we had 5 missions planned for the day of varying lengths, starting with longer games in the morning, getting shorter and shorter as the day went on, because one of the things that we've learned from previous games is that you start long and go short because people get knackered as the day goes on. Last thing you want to do is kind of start with kind of quick fire games, get everybody exhausted, and then be like, and now we're playing a 90-minute long game. And everyone's like, we don't want to.
Yeah.
As it happened, that kind of happened anyway because of the weather, but we'll not spoil that for now.
Spoiler alert, it was July.
Yes.
It was hot.
It was 87% humidity. It was just...
It was like playing in soup.
87% humidity and a real feel of 36.
Why did
Yeah.
we do this to ourselves? But yeah, it was not as. I mean, to be at like we got I think 14 players, 2 teams of 7, counting myself and Angel as player marshals, and the games went pretty well. I'm actually really happy with the game types and design as it happened, but it definitely the nature of the games that we run at KillFactory, which are very kind of tactical mission based. We make people run, we make people fight for objectives. There's always a pressure element to kind of encourage people to get stuck in. And the heat and the humidity basically meant that we got to kind of 2 o'clock in the afternoon of a full day game. And Joker and Angel and I kind of all kind of stepped aside and went, we're going to kill people. We absolutely need to kind of, at the very least, we need to adjust what we're doing, and if not, possibly just bin off the rest of the mission set and just do some phone flinging fornication abouts, rather than continuing to drive our players into heat stroke. But Joker can better kind of give that kind of viewpoint because Joker is obviously our head marshal, and they run the actual games on the fly. Joker, Angel, and I, we are player marshals. We kind of wrangle the individual teams, but it is Joker who has the kind of bigger overview. So I'm going to pass over to them for this bit.
Like, nothing is original under the sun, and the plots that we come up with are homages to seminal works of science fiction. And as much as KillFactory's 10 and 11 were sort of love letters to stuff like Halo and Alien, much more sort of inside claustrophobic movies like that, and video games like that, and Dead Space and all the rest of it. This was much more, like Spectre said, it was Chronicles of Riddick, Dune, Halo, except not the bits inside, that sort of thing. But yeah, like we started off with a game mode which was essentially claiming the ship, where I had found in Lidl, literally the week before we even started thinking about this, I'd seen a dog agility set for training your dog to run between sticks. And I went, you could maybe make an objective out of this.
And then Joker comes onto the Britnose channel and goes, hey, what do we think about these? Could we use them for something? And I went, yes, buy 2 sets. I have a plan. This was before we'd even said we were going to run a game. But I'm like, I can absolutely do something cool with this. And yes, those are a thing that I was very pleased in how they went.
So yeah, there's a plastic poles with a metal spike about sort of 3.5 feet high. Obviously, we took steps to make the spike
less spiky.
Yes, so it's still insertable in the ground, but it's not going to.
There is video footage
spear
of someone trying to impale wings. That would
yeah,
be a good. That would be a great time to insert that footage.
Yeet it. Maybe not at Michael's feet.
Look, that could have been really good, but also terrible.
It's not a sharp point on it.
Point out I was aiming over there.
And that's if that nothing else speaks volumes about your aim.
Yeah, it was Sai throwing it to Wings or to Blue to pass on because there were different levels on the where they were stood, and it was a terrible throw and nearly went straight through Blue's foot.
That's definitely going in here just now. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It'll be on my footage.
Joker's just like, I did not know about this. Why did I not know about this? But for what it's worth, mate, I only knew about it when I was looking back through the footage earlier. It is definitely that moment of him just going javelin. I'm like, an absolute fair play to a bunch of other people. They went, Simon, no, do not do that again. You muppet.
Yeah. And I take great comfort from knowing that would be something that I would probably have done just innocently and got told off for it. So I really don't feel bad that it was Sai that was doing it, because I'm like, cool, that takes the heat off me this time.
I mean, if we're going to brackets affectionate drag our players, I was going to say, well, Sai threw a javelin beacon at Wings. Well, did he deserve it? Was what my initial response was going to be. But so anyway, so yeah, we started off. There's a structure in the middle of the Dishforth arena called the Skeleton, which we sort of represented as the crash wreckage of the ship. Started off 2 sort of time trials to get around the skeleton and place 6 beacons in a hexagon around it. However,
that is the game that went the way I expected it to go. It just went way faster than I expected it to go.
yeah, because the time that we had allotted for it was significantly longer.
We allotted 45 minutes to each playthrough with the player swapping sides to allow 15 minutes for transit, and each game was supposed to be 30 minutes. In both cases, the games were finished inside 15, and I think the first game was done inside 10. Now, admittedly, the first game was, again, this is a fantastic example of this was very much, as with all of the kind of first time you use a site, you learn things very quickly. We had whistles to signal the start of the game, and we learned very quickly that if you stand in the skeleton, somebody at the far end of the Big 6 or the Big 5 can't hear the whistle.
I will confess, my usual martial whistle, which is still missing, went missing shortly before gearing up for KillFactory XII. The one that I bought for KillFactory X, which is a Fox 90 that lives on my finger. It's got a sort of finger mount. It's an ice hockey whistle. And I was running with equipment borrowed and bartered from other players. Now, the whistle I chose to use was the quietest of the 3 to start out the first round, and was backed up by a radio call, because the 3 marshals were running walkie-talkies on the whole thing. However, yeah, there was a bit of confusion there in terms of game start. By the time one team even emerged from their assigned half of the field, the other team had pretty much already won.
Yeah, we because the team balance in terms of blasters and skill was definite. I was happy with the team balance in that sense, but the team balance in terms of fast movers versus non-fast movers was not where I would have liked it to be. In that all of the very fast aggressive players versus the players who generally use suppression and sort of more slow advances were all on the other team. And so basically in the first match, the Boneheed's team, which was Angel's player team, Seraphim Incorporated, they made it to the kind of skeleton area, by which point we'd already arrived, set up the 3 beacons closest to their spawn point that we needed to set up, and 2/3 of our team had set up essentially a firing line. So we essentially bunkered the first team in their general area so they couldn't advance, held off the back area while Ross and Darren ran all the way back and got our second set of beacons and set those up. And that point, it's like, there's not a lot you can do about that. It was also, this is again an example of the battle plans never making first contact with the enemy. When I was designing the game, I was looking at the Dishforth map, and the Dishforth map doesn't have any elevation markers on it.
No, it does not.
From the back of Big 5 to the skeleton, there's a significant lip, and you can climb up it, but it's definitely a barrier of movement, which doesn't exist from the Big 6 into the skeleton. So there's a distinct asymmetrical aspect to that, which again shows in the game going back the other way, in that we found it a lot harder coming from the back of Big 5. So again, this is one of these things where the design of the game and the players have been really good in the sort of discussions afterwards, talking about what worked, what didn't. And this is one of the things I love about the Britnef community and the coin community, the idea that we can have these chats and it's not taken as a dig at it. It's about making the game better for everybody. Because certainly I don't want people to come to my games and have a rubbish time and not enjoy themselves. I want them to feel like I certainly don't want them like there's no it's you want to kind of make sure when you're certainly my viewpoint as a game organizer is that you want your players to have a challenge, because it's no fun for a team to get curb stomped all day, and it's actually no fun to be the team curb stomping either. Like that's fun once for one round, and then you because then you feel like tactical badasses. When your entire day is spent and there's basically if the teams are not balanced well, which can happen for varying reasons, it actually just means that it's not fun for the other team. It stops being a challenge. And so I think there's definitely tweaks that I will make to KillFactory 13. Well, actually, we're not going to run KillFactory 13. We're going to run KillFactory 14, and KillFactory 13 will not exist because we're better. I'm not superstitious, honest.
Bacon.
But yes, I think the first two games went much quicker than we expected. Which again, we kind of after the first kind of game went through, I was like, right, that we allocated 30 minutes for that, and it's been done in 10. Would you guys prefer that the game continue till close and we just log the time that the mission is complete, but then phone flinging continues? And the general consensus was no, we'd rather stop the game when the win condition is met and then keep going. So the first two games, I was very happy with the premise and the way that the games went. I was just very surprised by how quickly they went. And I'm gonna the intention to change for the next game is to basically roll that game in the second game, because the second game that we did was basically an attack and defend. The premise basically being the teams, the teams have taken control of the ship now. They have kind of claimed it, but the other team can still kind of get in and steal it if they're quick. So I think my intention is to roll those two games together and then do something else for the middle game, but I don't know what that's going to be yet.
I kind of like the idea of sort of being able to undo the beacons being placed. I like the idea of continuing with the idea of specialization themes, because one of the things we haven't discussed was the medic rules and the sort of typical medic rules that we use at Dishforth, and how those have slightly tweaked and they worked very well. Because although again we're not taking it as being this is the final perfect iteration of the game, we're just taking it as the first version of it. The idea that if you could get up there fast enough, it just became a race. Plant them down and then it could be over very quickly. Whereas if you had maybe one or two per, 1 per 5 or 2 per 10 sort of thing, okay, who could remove the beacons, not take them away, but just remove them and put them down, very much like what we were doing during the second and third games. But roll that in means that it becomes almost not quite Flux, but it's close enough to Flux where you're going to want to have to keep an eye on the other ones as well, rather than just these are down, they're safe, they can't be touched, and therefore they're fire and forget almost. And it's now a case of right, well actually we need to pay attention to those ones. It does, however, mean that Joker as a marshal would have to be keeping very close eye on 12, potentially up to 12 beacons at one point in time.
Yes, and that's what I was going to come in with, is one of the big challenges of Dishforth. And tracking when an objective is complete is a lot easier when you've got multiple sets of eyes. I did my best with what I could. The the problem with the skeleton is while you're inside the skeleton, you can see very clearly in 2 of the 4 cardinal directions. And to get to see south and west towards the big 6 and out towards the convoy. The problem, sorry, south towards the convoy, west towards the big 6. It is a bit more difficult because you have the sort of reinforced embankments there, which you don't have on the east side because, the ramp up to the skeleton is the sort of fortification on that side, it being an ex-RAF facility. But yeah, like, and this is where, what episode of Tag Talk are we on?
8.
So spoilers for episode 9. This is where a solution like the bomb box that Blindgate UK has and used to great effect at Hold the Front Page is something that I've been toying with for a while. I have a degree in electronics and software engineering, and it's just something like, that's actually worked really, really well. But much like a lot of complicated missions that video games could pull off very, very well, that's because they have an omniscient god overseeing it, that being called the game. And that is a challenge of the medium. That is a challenge of the mission-based gameplay that we're trying to run at KillFactory. But yeah, the pushback mission I think actually went really, really well.
Yeah, I wasn't playing. I was doing the photography for the day, but I was watching it as an outsider, even with my very limited viewpoint. I thought it was brilliant to watch players and how they were working together. And I would say that even with the feedback that you've taken from it, I think it was a success.
I did find it rather hilarious during the pushback game. Actually, one of the players was like, "I couldn't find the 4th pillar," and then I realized Joker must be watching them. So where can Joker see from where they're standing? And figured out where one of the pillars must be.
I think one of my sort of favorite moments from the second game, which was the whole you need to go in and take down the pillars that are being held by the other ones and replace them with yours. There was a wonderful moment when myself and Jason, because he had the big riot shield. Basically, I'm kind of down behind him, lifting out and replacing the poles whilst he is running the shield and providing interference for me. This worked really, really well. But yeah, like I think the intention.
We've got a photo of that.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that worked really well. The poles as objectives, definitely keeping those. Those are great. Things that I want to learn, things that I want to change about that going forward is I'm going to run the game twice again. But it will be an attack and defend from the beginning. Essentially, Team 1 has already arrived in place and set up their beacons. Your shuttle is the first building of the big 6. So that means that players don't have to climb that bank. There's not that difficult thing. And then what you've got is that kind of, it's almost like a rolling retreat in that you're defending the kind of beacons at the front of the ship. And then once those have been taken down, you're kind of falling back to defend the beacons at the rear of the ship. But again, there's also the possibility of, if you have a particularly sneaky or fast player, naming no Rossies,
or Darren, or Ben's, yeah.
What you could do is you could come out of the shuttle, go round into the rear, and then theoretically come up the bank and attack the skeleton from the rear. So there is tactical flexibility there, but it means that so as much as I love the concept of, and again, this comes back to kind of a little bit about what Joker was talking about how the difficulty when you're building games, it's sometimes difficult. Like, again, it never matches reality. The idea of starting players at the back of the big 5 and the back of the big 6 and make them run sounds great on paper, but we're all old, unfit. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
So as much as I'm happy to do that, and as much as some players are happy to do that, it's a lot harder to balance when you start building that in. And in terms, like we've talked about accessibility on Tag Talk before, and how Nerf should be as accessible as possible. And I think there's a level of, I want players to feel like Nerf is an active combat sport. People should be doing active stuff, but there should also be a place for the people that are not necessarily as fast or as agile or as who don't have two working knees. Naming no me's. So I think by changing the dynamic of it and removing that run from the back, because originally, again, what I thought we'd be getting if we had more players is I thought we'd also get some kind of cross talk from the Big Five and the Big Six through Convoy and Trench, which we just didn't get at all. And again, this is where planning and reality don't mesh. So I can look at that and go, okay, that didn't work. But what can I take away from it? And as I say, the things that came away from it well were the beacons as a set point, and the attack and defend mission, the second mission set that we did with that in that area worked really well, because again, it was much closer fixed point spawns to the actual objective, so people weren't knackered by the time it got to the actual objective.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
also sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go on. I was just going to say, from a player's perspective, I mean, again, obviously, with much love intended, there were things that didn't work, and I think it was just, like you say, on paper, it looked fine. Running from one end of the Big Five to the skeleton is fine on paper, but when it's as hot as it was and as humid as it was, and as old as we all are, in reality, that was just probably a little bit ambitious. And I think the geographical kind of limitations of the site, like you say, you've got that big step up from the Big Five that isn't there from the Big Six. It just meant that, I mean, my first contact with the enemy in that first game was Green Hornet, and he was already on our side of the skeleton. And then I think it was the next person I saw was Spectre, and I was just kind of suppressing Spectre until Blue turned up, and then we could kind of flank him. And at that point, I eventually managed to hit him, but it was all on our side of the skeleton. So kind of half of the action that we would have had in the skeleton, or, you know, the fight to kind of stop you guys planting your beacons, it was already over, because we took so long to get to you because of the not being able to hear the whistle, but also the terrain. It just didn't work. And we did shoot ourselves in the foot as well when choosing teams, because as we said, all the fast movers were on Ghost Squad. So we got all the slower guys on our team.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I, as a game organizer, and Joker can back me up here, the difficulty with that is, like, you don't want to say, it's a difficult one to point out. It's like, you don't want to say, you've got all the tubby on that side, guys. Can we also adjust for physical fitness levels? Because that's a really difficult thing to say without potentially upsetting people.
And not even physical fitness levels, talking about like various levels of risk that certain people are willing to accept in combat maneuvers as well. Because you can be as fit as you like, and you still won't want to run up the dirt track at the right-hand side of the Big Five leading up to the skeleton.
Fair dues. Instead of saying you're all old and unfit, it could have been, or rather, I wouldn't have personally had a problem saying to Darren, Ben, Tony, and Ross, you four are not playing together because you two are far too fast for the rest of us, which is the same thing from the other side.
Yeah.
And saying, right, so you're getting split down, 2 on this team, 2 on the other team, that's fine, because then it's not a case of what can they keep up, it's a case of we're just balancing the team out to make everybody enjoyable, you know? Or I would possibly have gone so far as to say, right, Darren and Ross, you two are getting split up, and Tony and...
So on the one hand, yes, but on the other, people show up and want to play with their mates. Like, one of the things that, again, I have a huge amount of love and respect for Blind Geek, right? Show up to all of his games. But one of the things that he does that he and I have butted heads on before is when me and Joker and Angel rock up, we want to play together. And often what they will do is go, well, unfortunately, Team N7, because you are a well-drilled, well-oiled, basically, we have a lot of skill that comes not just from our individual skills, but our ability to work together. So by splitting me off from Joker and Angel, or basically by isolating one of them away and moving them onto the other team, it reduces that effectiveness. And I totally understand, speaking as a game organizer, why that happens. But as a player, that is potentially unfun. And I don't, and I don't want to. I'm more than happy to say, I think you're right, that if I have Bendy and Adrian showing up, and Darren and Ross, who are there's a very similar dynamic between those two pairs, and go, right, okay, well, you're on one side and you're on the other, because that guarantees that you guys can have a scrap.
Yeah, it's the balance factor while still allowing people who know each other and who work well together to play together. So it's that middle ground.
And then very occasionally, Ross will be like, "No, I want to shoot Darren now," and Darren will be like, "Oh, you."
Yeah,
but yes. So coming on to yes, I think you're right. The way to phrase it is not to be like, actually, we've put all the unfit people on one side. We split up the fit people, so it's a compliment to be split.
And I think that leads us nicely into game number 5, which was the cargo
evac run.
The
Mission
evac run,
3.
thank you. Yes, or in my mind, it's mission 5 because we played, but it's mission 3. But what I'll do is I'll link in the video just now of their rush from spawn to the field, because that'll give you an example of how broken that lot was.
There's no point in pulling it by that, Ross.
Someone touch it. Concrete at the beginning.
I'm dropping bags. I'm wrecking. One sec, Ross. Ross!
No, bring that back here this instant. Back here, please.
I didn't need to be ready? We'll go straight ahead.
Resume.
Go.
Still going. Oh!
Right, they're going to shoot you. That's okay.
Do you want to swap sides?
Still as far as you can. Go.
Lose momentum.
No, wasn't me. That was me.
As a game, I love it. I am so happy with how evac run worked conceptually.
Yeah, absolutely.
And evac run is an example of those kind of things where where again we would have had the same terrain for people, and the asymmetric nature of it. And I think this comes back to the discussion we had about mission 1 and 2. You make the asymmetric nature of it being that you play both sides rather than you start at 2 different spawn points. And the baseline idea of you had to get this not insignificantly heavy, not insignificantly, it's an unwieldy thing with plastic wheels on, uneven terrain, getting it from the skeleton to the CQB area under fire, whilst at least 2 of you have to keep your hands on it at all times. I'm so happy with how it went. It came out exactly as I expected it. But again, those boys were fast. They were fast.
Yeah, and
they were carrying it at one point in time. They weren't even bothered pushing it. They were just carrying it between them.
The first time I saw the box as a marshal, because I sort of tried to start roughly in the center of everybody in the big 5. The first time I saw the box, it was being bum rushed round the side of the hill, around trenches, and that was hilarious.
I did remember as well the kind of the team that were on the defending team, which was you guys. Basically they radioed through and were like, we're concerned about people trying to move at speed through this terrain. And I went, okay. And I talked to my guys, and they're like, nah, we're fine with it. Cool, crack on, informed consent. And
Yeah,
yeah,
the fact that also the access paths between each individual area are not on the intel map led to the hang on a minute, there isn't a path to the CQC area that we thought was here, or there is a path to the CQC area, but you have to climb up a meter, just gradient, like just rise.
And
my
that's where a lot of my footage was lost, because I was trying to climb up to the convoy area and had one of my 3 falls of the day, and my camera just went click. So you'd got my feet from that point on. But yeah, just on that, we were expecting the crate to actually come through the Big Five, and it didn't. It went through the convoy around the outside of the Big Five. So obviously, then we'd got to climb up from the Big Five up onto the higher area to defend, and that was a bit of a shock.
Yeah, I think again that is one of those things where I don't want to limit the play by saying you have to go down through the Big Five. But I think there's definitely I need to be clear that no, seriously, this entire area is in play, and they definitely got a chunk of space down that run before you guys realized.
Yeah,
and again,
I think from
sorry,
go on. I was just going to say, from my perspective, I think that was more naivety, or at least inexperience of the arena. I hadn't ever been up to that convoy area before. I'd gone through the Big Five to the CQB, and I knew where the CQB was, but I hadn't sort of gone round that top end. I think the last time I went, it was far too overgrown for that. And the fact that was up there, and I was like, oh, okay, they can go up there, was kind of my exact reaction on I don't know if it was on film or not, but it was just kind of, oh, right, okay, they're not coming this way. I need to get up there so that I can actually do something to defend here. I think that was part of the terrain. It's just how it was.
Yeah, I think there was a point when probably isn't actually that one, or possibly the month before, when I'm pretty sure it's Darren appears over the top of the ridge that separates the convoy and Big Five, and your first thing is he's out of bounds. I'm like, no, he's not. Nope. But it's good because it's a case of thinking outside the box, and very much the surprise when everybody's, oh crap, right, they're across there now, right, and then suddenly we've only got one funnel point to get through to them. And it's just a case of bottleneck there. So then people having to run back to then go around the other way to then be facing like a 60-degree hill, It was great to watch it. And some of the commentary, which I won't obviously include because I'm going to edit it down, but it was very much a case of like, we have not thought this one out.
Yeah. And speaking of not thinking this one out, this was the point where so just before mission 3, unfortunately, Angel had to bow out because Dishforth, it turns out, is outside and full of grass. And even with the strongest antihistamines that money can buy, was still just suffering. Like, it was overcoming my stuff. And also it had been slowly heating up over the course of the day.
Yeah.
And it's around about this point where my radio as lead marshal has already failed twice. I can hear everything they're saying, and I'm just sitting there going, why aren't you idiots responding to me? It was on this day that I found out that my radio's low voltage alarm is not what it says in the manual, and going low voltage, which is what it started doing on the 3rd battery. But instead, every time you hit the push to talk, it just beeps, which is woefully non-indicative. And also, the heat started messing with tech. It started messing with my watch. At a certain point, it got that hot that my watch started going a little bit wazzy.
Messing with people's blasters, people's equipment, and tempers were getting frayed as well.
Patience was getting short. because we started out and it was quite a nice sort of pleasant summer day, but as time wore on, it just became, oh, there's just no wind at all.
And the original plan for missions 4 and 5 were that they were going to take place in the CQB area, which is an enclosed area with a lot of black walls and a lot of dark spaces, and it was basically an oven. So and originally we'd planned to do mission 3, the 2 evac runs back to back. And we kind of called everybody together, and everybody from both teams looked spent. So we went, right, we weren't going to do this, but everybody back to the safe zone, reload, rearm, rehydrate, 10-minute, we're going to do this again. And that was the point when I grabbed the other two and we were like, we need to change what we're doing. Or do we need to change what we're doing? Do we feel that we should abandon what because people have showed up to play, because we felt as well, or certainly I felt, and Joker, I don't want to speak for Joker, but certainly I felt we go quite hard with KillFactory in the idea that we run mission-based tactical gameplay. And so the people that show up to play those games want mission-based tactical gameplay, right? So like a friend of mine, Sally, who's very wise, has this whole thing about LARP, which is this idea that there is no such thing as bad LARP. There is only dishonest LARP. In the LARP that advertises itself as something else or doesn't advertise itself properly. Like it tries to get people to show up for, like if you showed up for a Regency dinner party and then midway through a Xenomorph showed up. Now I've played that LARP, and
I was about to say that sounds amazing.
I've played that LARP,
but
and like whilst the characters didn't know that midway through the Friday night ball, an alien was going to escape from inside the sarcophagus that was there. We all knew that out of character, and we'd all signed up to basically, it was like the idea of Pride and Prejudice and zombies, except it's Pride and Prejudice and aliens. And we'd all signed up for that. But if all you had signed up for was a Regency ball gowning LARP, you'd be really irritated about midnight on Friday because you've bought gear, you've paid accommodation, you've driven to site. So I think there's a very kind of distinct element of you set out your stall, and again we talk about this in the very first Tartan Skirmish video. You set out your stall and you are honest about what you're doing. And like some people on the BritNev community were like, look, you're running a very milsim game and not everyone likes that. And we're like, yes, we know. We don't expect everybody to want to show up to the games that we play, but the games that we run, but the people that show up, you kind of assume that they've bought into it. And indeed in the sign up thing, it's like, this is a tactical game with tight turnarounds. And if you do not listen to what we tell you, we may eject you, because we're not going to have people, because the games we run are complex. We want people to we want people who enjoy that game type. And there's nothing wrong with not enjoying that. There's absolutely no shame in being like, I want to go to FTT Star Wars and run around like a lunatic for 2 hours with a Saturn. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. And indeed, I greatly enjoy that. But you want to run the game, you want to both be clear about what you're running, and you want to make sure that players don't feel shortchanged about what you're running. Yeah. So we were very much in that element of do we keep trying to do this, or are we actually going to make things unfun for people? And again, kind of Angel absolutely kind of cut to the root of it and goes, why don't we just ask them? Because we were really struggling with this kind of decision. Like, what do we do? And was like, actually, we could just ask everybody. And so we pulled everybody together, all of the players, and we're like, look, we are happy to continue running this game, but we have these concerns. How would you feel about us basically saying the story has finished here and we will revisit it at another time? And instead, we will go into the Big Six where it's cool and shady and play some standard Britnerf standards.
We'll look at the props that we've brought and try and figure something out with the stuff that we have.
Yeah.
I think you were lucky in that respect that most of the guys that turned up for the day, while the LARP stuff that you'd set up was fantastic and really enjoyable, I think it was the right call to then change because everyone that was there aren't like adverse to just having a bit of a foam flinging sesh. You know, they're all guys that enjoy just shooting each other with children's toys, and that I think went in your favour.
And I think also again the kind of honesty aspect and being willing to say, you know what, guys, this isn't working. We're worried it's not working, and we're worried that what we don't want you to do is go home and having had a rubbish time.
Yeah,
and I'd rather just do that. And I'm actually really happy with the pushback variant we came up with, which was born out of necessity.
Yeah, that was great.
Again, first plan of contact never meets quite with the enemy. There was a flaw in the briefing of how it works, which was you are not able to respawn from the same flux point, because we put a flux point in each of the 6 buildings in the Big Six, and the objective of the attacking players was to get those spawn points and take them out of play. What do you do when there's only one left? Now, to me, when I said it out loud, I was like, cool, when you get down to the last one, because there isn't another one you can go to, that is your last life. And that to me was just obvious because I was coming up with it. But there was definitely a point where they're like, oh, they're continually respawning. They're not going away from the spawn point. And I'm like, I have failed to effectively communicate.
I mean,
and the worst part was I was on the attacking team, so I couldn't at that point. I didn't feel I could step in and go, "No, guys, you run out of lives now."
Yeah, because it would be a case of no, you're just not able to do it well enough, mate. You know, whereas I think to be fair, I think even on the defending team, because I'm pretty sure I was standing beside the defending team whilst they were doing it. I think they're like, are we allowed to do this? Because like, yeah, you know, and I'm like, who cares? Whatever, we're having fun. You know, if you'd actually turned up and said, no, hold on, I've not, time out, I've not done this correctly, you get 1 life. You know, once it's done the last one, you cannot respawn. I think everybody would have gone, that's fair. You know.
I think the other thing I would do is actually rather than do that, because again, like I want people to be able to do that. What we did in when we did it in the Foundry was we made the red sofa room a spawn in addition to the tiles, so you could always go back to the red sofa room, and then so basically once the tiles were flipped, when you got to the red sofa room, that was your last life. So you basically, again, we're just moving that stage back one, but it gives a really clear thing of, and now you're on your last life.
Yeah, and in the Foundry, there was also that sort of proxy end of round where the attacking team gets to the red sofa room.
Yeah, because at that point, you're like, we literally control both these doorways and have full auto. Do you wish to continue spawning? It's up to you.
Yeah. So there was a sort of a stalemate victory that you could achieve there. And I think that's one of my like I do, now that I've made some changes to my kit, like Dishforth is a venue that I am now starting to get as a player and really appreciate. It's one of those things that my first sort of woodland nerf experience was a site called Dog Tag down south near Gatwick at Games of Thrones Clash of Brit nerf. So that sets you up with certain assumptions about how outdoor nerf works at 300 FPS. And Dishforth, while it is a lovely site, does have its flaws. The Big 5 is asymmetrical. The Big 6 is really narrow and twisty and full of hills and thorns and brambles and mushrooms. Lovely mushrooms. Here, have a mushroom.
Insert footage of Joker inspecting the mushrooms from my GoPro there.
I'll make sure it's there.
Sorry, I saw some mushrooms and I thought I'd better take some photos for my biologist boyfriend. Use that was the first time I'd been at Dishforth, and then never again because it had been overgrown. And that's nothing you can really do about that. It's nothing you really legislate for because it takes a whole lot of maintenance. And the Northern Alliance Airsoft team is one guy.
Yeah.
So there is a certain amount of only so much planning you can do. But I want to say it went well, because importantly, everyone went away from that having had some form of fun and having had their cool moment of the day.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm not unhappy about how the game went. The only thing I'm unhappy about is that it didn't no plan ever survives first contact with the enemy, and that's the first time we've run a game with Dishforth. I am happy that everybody went home happy. I'm happy that we went home happy. I got to use blasters that I've never got to use at that power level before, which made me very happy. I think we learned a lot about the site as a game organizer team that we will then be able to use to improve future games. I don't know when our next game is. I know that Spartan is running a game, or is intending to run a game in October. Our viewpoint on it is that it is Spartan's site to run, but also maintaining a consistent monthly game is important to both us and Spartan. He and I have talked about it, and basically, if Spartan is not running, we ideally will, because that way everybody gets the option to roll through and to play on a monthly basis. Although I'm not running a game in December.
Yeah,
possibly a bit too cold.
Yeah, I mean it's not the coldness, because everyone fully kitted up. There's a certain amount of cold that you can deal with, because events like Winter Clash do exist. Like Invicta in November 2022 was absolutely fine. I mean, it was vertical, but but yeah, I think the limiting factor you run into in summer games, and this happened to Hollenbach, spoilers, is that heat will just wreck your player's endurance. And that was the same at the Foundry. It's the same at virtually any venue that isn't indoors and a massive thermal sink. I'd not like to think how the depot gets in the middle of summer, put it that way.
I mean, the depot's in Scotland, so it's probably fine.
But it could go either way. But the converse of that is that you're limited by daylight in winter months. I mean, we've seen it. We started this call and daylight was flooding in through my window and blowing out half my face, and I'm actually going to turn this light on because I'm now doing some ridiculous vampire shit. But
my thinking is, I've done LARP in Yorkshire in December, and snow is a thing, which is hilarious until it isn't.
Yeah. I can just imagine me trying to maneuver around in snow, and I'm just thinking that's going to be an accident waiting to happen.
You put your riot shield down and go sledding.
see, like there's just one specific photo I've got in my head that I'm probably misremembering, which is why I sort of paused there, because the image was giving me joy, but I'm not sure if it's a image that.
Share it later. But yeah, I've now just got this mental image of David kind of Legolasing and just throwing grenades as he goes by.
Outdoor nerfing in Sheffield in winter, where everything is a hill, everything's downhill, and it's all just ice and snow. And you've just got David sort of surfing on a riot shield, lobbing grenades at people.
I like how we went from...
And then getting to a wall at the bottom and then realizing, I have misjudged this plan.
oh no. And then, 3 feet before the wall, improbably changing so it's facing backwards. So, of course, hits the wall arse first, as per tradition.
Yeah. Well, I've got a track record for property damage at events, so,
And landing arse first, let's be fair.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Play the clip.
Boom, 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 boom.
Let's see
Oh.
that again.
In
And
slow motion.
again, and again, and
And again.
Oh, God, that really hurt. That really did.
No, like you genuinely, right? As much as we joke about it, it's only funny because you're not dead. You
Yeah,
could have
exactly.
killed yourself.
And
Yeah.
also crucially, you're laughing along, and it's one of those. I think also that's one of the good things about the sort of Brit Nerf community, and as much as we do have our differences, there is a certain amount of like sort of caricature that you can be. It's like, yes, Tartan falls over, Joker breaks something.
You get shot in the nuts, you know.
in the left nut specifically.
Oh yeah, like we were talking
Yeah.
about tactical
You
kit
were the-
and like the Tachi magazines earlier today, and someone's like, yeah, so I'm like, yeah, so I use it for America, for playing in American tournaments where I wanted to have 90 rounds on my person and not have to carry any gear, and they were, we don't believe you. Those exist of me playing Nerf with no gear, and they're like, nah, not true, not possible.
Spectre has more kit than certain armies.
Yeah. Just for transparency's sake, we will now include that picture, you know, on screen, you know, so that it does become, you know, irrefutable evidence for the record.
Photoshopped, not real. It's fake news. It's fake news.
Yeah. I think it's definitely looking back at that particular fall. I know how much pain I was in afterwards, and I know that if I had been maybe another 90 degrees on rotational landing, I would have been getting ambulanced out of there. I got out of that incredibly luckily. And it is, when I look back, it's actually kind of terrifying. Because it's a case of, cool, I could have been inside a hospital on a stretcher board, having spent 12 hours on one of those once from a car accident. I didn't enjoy it. I definitely don't want to do it again.
And I don't want to belabor the point, but without wishing to sound kind of scary, mate, you can break your neck. You could have been going out of that site in a box.
Yeah.
And it's as I say, it's only funny because you're okay.
Yeah.
And we're all really glad of it. But like, let's not throw ourselves downstairs ever again. Yeah.
No.
Spinal damage is no laughing matter. You know, the fact you still got use of all your extremities and you're still here and we can still mock you for it. Is the positive thing. From that fall.
Yeah.
And we have video footage we can laugh at.
Yes, the critical thing is, can you laugh at it? Yes, in which case, then fair enough. You know, no autopsy, no foul, as the case may be. You know,
so I mean, if we're going with stuff to laugh at, apropos of nothing, like obviously I fidget with stuff. I've got this little multi-tool. I want to retighten the screw on it. Reach for some random screwdrivers which are down here by my feet. Some of them don't have labels on the end. I picked the first one that didn't have a label on the end, and I forgot this was part of the set. just a bottle opener.
Oh, love it.
You
special
could screw
as
some
ever.
very, very large screws in with it, maybe. You know, ones that are sort of that big.
Yeah.
So, coming back to Planet Fall, Ton, do you have questions that you want to ask about things or comments that you want to make? Because obviously we've been kind of driving the episode.
No, I'm absolutely fine. As I said, I wasn't playing, I was doing photography, which was something that on one hand, thank you for not making a thing about my decision to sit out, because I am very well aware that you were sort of expecting me to play. I wanted to take pictures because I wanted to have something to show about it, because it was very important for me to have a bunch of pictures. 2,500 I took that I narrowed it down to something like 240, I think it was, and it took me about a day to do the whole thing. If I could go back, I would play, okay? Because getting back and realizing that's still not a pleasant image, mate. Do us a favor and change it, will you? Yeah.
Yeah, put your nostrils away, Bonehead, please.
So, back a sentence. I would play. Okay. My takeaways from it is, one, I would actually be selfish and play rather than taking pictures. I am absolutely happy that Jason Green Hornet was rocking around with Bendy's Riot Shield, which is basically the same one as me, but with black coloration and a viewing window. Having worked with some of the footage that he's got, the viewing window works very well for your eyes, and it works not at all
As
for
well
the camera.
for you go for it.
Yeah. Maddox had this as well when he was doing Behind the Riot Shield. He could see, and the camera couldn't. So I absolutely stand with the statement. If you're interested in doing recording and want to use a Riot Shield, get a transparent one. Okay, you can add decals to it, whatever, but get a transparent one, because otherwise you've got basically the inside of your shield.
Actually, on the subject of shields, obviously they were a subject of some debate, and have continued to be. And in the previous Tag Talk episode, they were talked about at quite some length. Obviously, we have shield breaking and shield piercing rules for NSE, and there was a lot of people like, oh, we're not sure we like the idea of like shield busting, and like, yeah, but I mean, we had those rules and nobody showed up with stuff that would do it.
Yeah.
Or rather they did, because we, again, in some of the later games, again, this is not exactly a spoiler, higher, like Mega XL and rockets and Mega blasters do stuff in later games. So a whole bunch of people had stuff with them, but they never felt that they needed to deploy it for the shield, because there was always enough kind of flanking or enough. Again, there's a video footage of me in the previous episode. It's like, what's your plan for dealing with shields? I'm going to shoot where the shield isn't.
My legs, you know.
Yep.
Which I absolutely wanted to include, because it was just quite a nice little clip that sort of summed it up, which is, he's got a big ass shield, I'm just going to shoot him in his legs. And it basically echoed the entire mentality, which is, cool, yeah, he's got a shield, fine, whatever. There's no real big hassle. The only thing that would ever possibly, and Brendan, to sort of, you'll be able to agree with me, the only way that me having a shield would have genuinely caused a problem would be if I was if I was sitting there in Unit 26 in Hull, blocking the path, the only path out of a room or the only path down a corridor, and you had no grenades, and basically that was it. Okay, it was such a niche possibility that it would cause a problem that it wasn't actually even worth considering for it. I would say, you know, on the subject of accessibility, if somebody broke my shield and I couldn't use it for the rest of the round, it wouldn't bother me. But for somebody who maybe the use of a shield was integral for their play experience because of accessibility, then yeah, possibly just simply say, all right, cool, doesn't affect your one. You know?
I think in that circumstance, it's absolutely fine for a game organizer to be like, on this, like, I've done builds, for example, for a guy down south who is in a wheelchair, and I built them a proton pack that was specifically built so that they could fire it with a mouth bite switch as their trigger, because they couldn't grip the Jupiter. They could grip and hold the Jupiter, but they couldn't rev it and fire it. So I gave them a foot switch for rev and a bike switch for the trigger. And I think in that circumstance, yeah, if you for example were to build like a shielded kind of thing around their mobility scooter or what have you, that's the kind of thing we're like, yeah, that's not, we're not going to have shield busting work on that. That's not fair. But
yeah,
that is such a niche and edge case, and as I've said publicly on Britain, if I don't write rules for edge cases, I write rules for the majority, and then we exercise discretion for those edge cases when they exist. Talking about other rules that we use, because we kind of touched on this earlier, the kind of medic stuff. We
Yeah,
used
the
a
medic rule.
variation on the medic rules where you had a 10-second bleed out during which you could not respawn, and then you had the option to choose to respawn or be medicked. And as opposed to the one that Spartan uses, which is you have 10 seconds in which you can be medicked, and then after those 10 seconds, you must respawn. And I think that employed a certain amount of tactical play. But one of the important requirements of that is you can't be medicked by the same person twice. So what that stops people doing is sitting behind cover with one guy just being like, again, this is I've seen it, but Dishforth in particular, there's a couple of places where you can be kind of ducked behind cover and the next person behind you is medicing you. So you getting tagged all the time, but actually, you have functionally infinite respawn, which is completely pointless. So having that limitation of not being able to be medicked by the same person twice, it encourages again more aggressive play, and it avoids bunkering.
Yeah, I do think that the KillFactory medic rule was an improvement. I
Thank you.
do not feel from the video editing that I managed to do so far that it was something that caused a great deal of problem. I think there was maybe a couple occasions where somebody's like, "Oh no, I've already resed you, so I can't do that," and which was just it's like 5 seconds of conversation, which point in time in the case of cool, right, next person can do it. Yeah, I don't think it caused any problem. I think it added a heck of a lot to it. Brendan, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that particular mechanic was good. One thing that I didn't see used particularly well would be the moving your resurrectee, if you like, because I know Spectre went to a great deal of effort in the briefing to kind of demonstrate, you can move the person you're resin. I didn't see anyone doing that. It may have happened in other areas, but I didn't actually see that. But I think that is, from a tactical perspective, that's quite a useful little mechanic, because it means that you're not just reviving someone for them to get instantly murked again back where they were standing. You can move them out of the line of fire and then revive them, so that they can potentially then swap places, but then go back in, and they're not going to be rezzed and then instantly killed again. Joker, did you?
I saw it used a couple of times, especially during the pushback missions, less so in stuff like the Big Five.
I must have just not seen it. One thing I did note, and I'll point this out because it is in my footage, and I'm sure David will include it in a little bit of bending of the rules from Seraphim.
Not entirely sure that counts, but I'll allow it because I'm on your team.
Team, I can't remember what the full name of the team was, from Angel's team, whereby instead of it being a sort of hand on shoulder revive, it was, here's the pole that we've got to use as an objective, hold on to the end of it and I will revive you that way. Very naughty, but I actually say I'll allow it because you're on my team. But I don't think it affected the gameplay in any great manner.
I'm gonna say actually that the rule states that you must be in physical contact with the person you're medicing. There is nothing that says you can't use a proxy item.
Fair enough.
Rules
as head marshal,
interpretation of the rules.
As
patch incoming.
As head marshal lines this, that the proxy item must be less than 1 meter in length.
So no grabbing your teammate using the grabby stick.
No. See, I was just imagining somebody showing up with like just 15 pool noodles hot glued together. quite how they
15 feet away.
quite how they got it in their car. We're not entirely sure.
Yeah. So yeah, this is one of the things that we talk about with UMBC as well. UMBC has a kind of reputation in the hobby as, because they play HVZ every week, sometimes twice a week, in fact, Monday nights and Thursday nights for an hour, for their sort of weeknight missions. They have a very robust rule set, and they have let's say a problem-solving mentality, which is that if something is not in the rules and not stated, it is acceptable to play within the rules as written. and then usually what happens is it gets allowed once, and then it is that. So, for example, last year they had a mechanic for the Pirates of the Caribbean themed one where they had the IKEA blow high. Am I pronouncing that correctly, Joker?
Yep. Blow
the
high.
mascot of your people. The blow high sharks, and there was a rules interaction that I noticed and pointed out in the briefing and was told that is acceptable under the rule set, which is that your blaster is not an acceptable taggable surface. The blow high must make contact with you in order to have an effect. It was a rooting effect, basically. It locked you in place.
You were blocking it with your blaster, weren't you?
So there was one point where I literally stepped in front of Angel and essentially used the stock of my blaster to basically baseball bat the blow high away from the two of us.
I believe in the rules briefing, it was can I use this massive rifle class blaster and you did do the full swing holding it by the buttstock.
Not in game, I did not know.
To rapturous applause from the briefing room, because that's how they work.
Yes, in the briefing room, I used it as a demonstration, but no, that is not how it went.
Oh yes, in game,
but
obviously.
this year for their cowboy themed one, they explicitly stated that a tumbleweed affected you regardless of where it hit you or any of your equipment. It was explicitly removed from your blaster is not a taggable surface rule, and I got congratulated again this year for being the reason a rule exists. Which is normally not a good thing, but in UMBC they have that attitude of if you find that loophole, it's clever, that's great, and then we patch it. So yes, that was completely reasonable under the rules as they were written. I will patch that for KillFactory 14.
See, I just thought it was against the rules.
I shall call it the Boneheed rule.
I believe it was Blue and Psy that actually did it, but yeah, I'll happily have a rule named after me because I pointed that out.
The Boneheed rule is the Boneheed rule is zero your sights, but that might just be me.
Now, my sights were zeroed. They were zeroed for the length of my hallway, and Spectre was considerably further away than the length of my hallway when I was shooting at him, which is why I was kind of.
I'm more
of the shot in the throat, you say.
I think Joker's referring to an incident at to Hull and back, but yes, no,
yes, I have.
I see what
The Boneheed rule. Yes, zero your sights before you try and use them for aiming.
Yes, the
spoilers. I got shot in the neck.
Yes, shot in the throat, you say. No, the conversation I had with Joker afterwards, which was like, can you get red dot sights that you can like adjust the windage and elevation on? And I'm like, yes, that is normal for red dot sights. And Joker went, oh, because you can't on the Mark III. I says, okay, I will rephrase my statement. It is normal for sights that don't come in a box with a toy.
Yes.
Don't come free on a blaster, yeah.
Yeah, the DCP Mark III is as good as that sight has no adjustment. I believe the Nerf Rival one does, except for the fact that the Nerf Rival one is
Nerf Rival one has elevation, but not windage.
Yeah, you're probably better off getting something for an airsoft. That's what I've got on my Harrier.
Oh yeah, I mean that's what I'm. I might have forgot to put that on my Amazon order. So
yeah.
Aha, you are reminded.
The Mark III sight is foam will go in that general direction.
Or if you're my Nexus Pro at UMBC 2023, foam will go exactly where the red dot is. Hence why I thought it was reliable.
Yeah.
As opposed to I've zeroed this on the longest sight line I can find in the arena. I need to aim here to hit there. And then imagine my surprise when the red dot is on Boneheed's A on the chest and goes straight into the neck. And it's like, oh,
yeah.
But anyway,
it's
coming
fine.
back to
it was only one joule. It's all good.
Coming back to KillFactory though, yeah, I mean the heat was a limiting factor, and that's something that we can't legislate for.
No.
No.
When I know Sarah essentially decided, no, you're all going to die. She's away at the shop.
And all hail Sarah.
The ice cream run.
Yes.
Just absolute god tier. That was an absolute stroke
Yep.
of genius right there.
So as the official guild navigator, representing the Salvage Guild, I ruled that Sarah, in fact, won KillFactory 12. Not any of the factions, you understand, or
Yeah.
the horrible Greebly that was inside the coffin all along that we were going to reveal that you all knew was there.
It was actually genuinely amusing watching the people that have played KillFactory 12 being like,
or 10 or 11.
Yeah, KillFactory 10 or 11, it'd be like, oh, we know what's in that box. And obviously we in character don't know what's in the box, but we totally know what's in the box back then. I'm like, yeah, now shut up and carry the box.
That's the one thing that I was disappointed with, okay? Is that I wanted to get an actual proper couple of minutes of your time with you in the full Gribbly get up, and then take a couple of decent quality shots of you in that setup around the CQB or wherever it was, okay? And I think that would be my one thing that was my disappointment, which is I didn't get to do that. But it's a trade-off. It's a case of we didn't die of heat stroke. Cool, I can do that another time.
Yeah, with all the love in the world, I was not putting that arm
No,
on in that.
No, I'm not explaining to the hospital why you are, suffering heat stroke whilst looking like a gimp,
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things that, and I had to do this earlier in the year, and like I mentioned this on, I believe it was episode 4 of Tag Talk, episode 3 or 4, Maryland Mayhem,
5.
which is, it was 5. Fair. It's one of those things that there are always more games to have. There are always more opportunities, and that's something like, in as much as like as a game runner, less so a game designer, I'm more focused on the day, keeping everything moving, keeping everything to time. Spectre's more the sort of game design with more experiences in that regard. But it's one of those things that you will never design the perfect game for everyone. You'll design a good game for most people, and that's what counts. Like, there are certain things that would be in my perfect game that everyone would think I'm a complete mad to even try.
My perfect game involves arriving by helicopter.
Do not talk to Red Diamond.
No, we've already been over that.
The thing with that though, Joker, and I completely agree with you that you're never gonna please everyone. It always comes back to something that I know Spectre said to me numerous times, and that's that you nerf you. You know, I'm not a big fan of flux type games. I just tend to run around and shoot people because that's how I like to play. I work towards the tactic of the actual the purpose of the game, but I'm not going to be going around and intentionally flipping tiles if I don't have to. If I can just shoot people so that other people can flip the tiles, that's my role and I fit into it quite well.
Yeah, but that's still playing as part of a team to the mission objective. You're just doing it in your particular way, and that's not detracting from anybody else. It's a case of cool, and as we say, you know what, to use the example from this particular event that we're discussing, we're not letting the old fat people with knackered knees do the shuttle runs with the beacons. We're giving it to the young, fit, or at least really fast folk. Okay, or at least if you've got sense, you will. We're you nerf you.
So there were two things I want to kind of point out, which would kind of come off from what Boneheed's been saying. There's a fantastic image that David got, which is Angel and Boneheed next to each other. And Angel,
I love this photo. I love that photo.
Angel is in like their blacks. They've got their kind of ball cap kind of down over the hat. They're hunkered down over their Swift. They're lining up a perfect sniper shot, and Boneheed is like 2 feet behind him, like with kind of purple cat ears and a purple and green phoenix. And it's like you couldn't actually encapsulate the basic premise of you nerf you than you could in that photo, in that you have the most leaked tactical sniper and a bearded moron with a full auto cat ear.
Yeah, it is.
Bonehead's camera is frozen, so I can't tell if he's mad at me for calling him a bearded
No,
moron or not.
I am laughing here. No, I completely agree, Spectre. You're right. My camera keeps cutting out for some reason. I think it's the USB cable. No, you're absolutely right. Every time I see that photo, it makes me chuckle, and it reminds me of you saying, like, literally the dichotomy of Nerf. You've got your super serious sniper, and then you've got the purple. And it always reminds me. I think it's that scene in Family Guy where Peter Griffin's there and dressed as a clown. And he says, "Oh, you guys are dumb. They're going to be looking for army guys." It's like me there as the clown in the background, kind of just wearing all the silly gear, next to Angel being super serious. It's a glorious photo, and it's a glorious kind of.
The other kind of thing that I wanted to kind of touch on was, I think it was a clash of Brit Nerf, and coming back to the thing we were talking about before, how it's no fun when one side continuously wins.
Mm-hmm.
This was a game day where the red team and the blue team, and the red team consistently won. Like, because it wasn't like quite as kind of tactical gameplay in the sense that we have a kind of linked storyline and all of that, but like every game kind of had objectives, like be it flux or be it domination or whatever. And the blue team were having a riot, and we were having a riot. But but consistently, red team won the actual game. And I was talking about it afterwards with Chris from Games of Foam and with Nerf Shack. I'm like, there's something about the way this game this day has gone that doesn't make sense to me, and I'm trying to figure out what it is. In the blue team have had a really good time and they've really enjoyed themselves, but they lost every game. And we had a really good time. It didn't feel like we curb stomped them at any point. I don't know what you would do about changing the team balance. And Nerf Shack said something that has stuck with me forever, which is, we didn't care about the objectives. We were here to fling foam and talk.
Yeah.
So they actually weren't. They were playing the game that they wanted to play. They were flinging foam and getting respawned and continuing to play, but they weren't really concentrating on the flux points or the domination points or the collecting the gold bars or whatever. They were just there to shoot people. And because that's what they wanted to do, they had a lot of fun. And because what we wanted to do was to shoot people, but also do tactical, we had a lot of fun. And it meant that by the win conditions of the game, we consistently won the entire day. But in terms of everyone having a good time and Nerf you, they had the fun that they wanted to have, and that made everything make sense to me. And it was that moment that was one of the things I realized at that point, which, like, you so long as people are enjoying themselves, that's the most important thing. You need to make absolutely sure when you're playing Tommy, not just as a game organizer, but also as another player, like, make sure that it's the auxiliary motto of more fun for everyone. Like, what am I doing to make things fun for other people? Like, oh, I appear to have made my way to the enemy spawn, and I'm sitting in a place that they can't hit me, and I am putting fire into their spawn. That's not fun. That's not cool. I'm gonna off somewhere else.
Mantra that was always stated to me was, the objective is to win, the point is to have fun. And that stuck with me because it's if I win, if I was on the winning team and I curb stomp people, that wouldn't be fun for me. Yes, I've technically won. I've achieved the victory conditions. I've won. But did I have fun? No. Well, then I've lost. I've failed to achieve what the entire purpose of it is, which is to have fun with my mates.
And I think there's also a danger. I believe it was KillFactory XII, as run by Blind Geek, there was a mission where both teams had to get stuff from their spawn into a shared objective box in the center of the base. The second time we tried it, both teams tried for the rush play, and the game was over inside 10 seconds. And it was just like, oh, that was pish. It was funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like the time at Nerfmania where we successfully cured the zombie virus because Blind Geek forgot that you need to have one less cure than you have starting zombies, and it was like, oh, cool, we've won by being tactically efficient. Well, this was boring. Well, let's play that again with less tactical efficiency.
Yeah. What's he got on the t-shirt? Whose bright idea was that? You know, that would be yours, Adam. It was your idea. You know?
Have you made Adam a shirt that says "Whose bright idea was this"?
No, he's got it on a t-shirt. Right now, I am very aware.
Guys, apologies.
Yes, I was going to say we're hitting time.
Yes,
time and a half.
After the rather lengthy recording that episode 6 and 7 turned into, we are very much capping it because, well, basically 2, if not 3, of the individuals on the show tonight have got work tomorrow morning. I'm lucky because I, work late, so it doesn't bother for me.
Yep.
But I'm very aware that we have got 10 minutes left of our planned recording time. So please, if I could just jump in just now and say, right, any final, and I'm telling you just now, Brendan, I'll go to bomb you. Right? If you start, okay?
This is not a sanctioned guild action.
Is this where I mentioned being in a tree?
3 count. 1.
Tree count.
No.
Tree count.
No, speaking of, that was one of the major things. No, I swear this is going to be relevant.
No, I think I know what you're going to say. Go on.
So
yeah, we know what's coming up now. Yeah.
While he can't be here today, like obviously this event couldn't have run without Angel marshalling Seraphim Company and being my sort of eyes on the other side of the play field. However, whose bright idea was it to give somebody who is blue-green colorblind?
Red-green colorblind.
Oh yeah, sorry. Red. Whose bright idea was it to give somebody who is red-green colorblind a green objective in a woodland environment?
That would be me. I forgot they were colorblind.
Yeah.
So
I didn't even know they were colorblind.
When Angel was like, I can't find an objective, I'm like, well, not the objective. We were using the objective beacons to mark the spawn points. So like, I can't find spawn points. I'm like, I have realized, chaps, that I have placed green things in a green environment where the lead marshal for the other team is red-green colorblind. I may have not thought this through all the way. And Angel was like, "You've done what?" So at that point, I was like, "Right." I went and got the blue ones instead, and went around and replaced them all with the blue ones. But that is a thing that I should have done differently: is not put green things in a green background.
One thing that did stem from that, and I think this is possibly where Joker got the idea to mention that from, was that I'm on camera saying, "There's the spawn point there. He's missed a trick by not putting it in a tree." Because of the tree like 2 feet away.
One of them was very nearly in a tree.
Yeah, but it wasn't quite in a tree. So
in a tree, I broke the counter.
I genuinely tried during episode 6 and 7 to keep it in line with how many times the actual word was mentioned, not just a direct reference to the moment of hilarity, and eventually gave up and still ended up about something like 30 odd.
Yeah. Let's not do that for this video, even how hilarious it would be to have a running theme.
No, we're not mentioning the fact that something was in a tree. Right.
Not only do I know where you live, right? You're not that far away from me right now, okay?
Counterpoint.
At least...
Counterpoint.
Yeah, you do have...
I know where Spectre lives. And I know how many sharp things are in his house.
This is
I
true.
know, I
You
know,
also
where
have
David. I know where both David and Joker live, and I have a car.
yes.
We
You
all have
my...
cars.
I
Oh
don't.
no, he doesn't.
Isn't.
David,
I don't, but only David knows where I live, so we're all good.
Yeah.
Just in in terms of closing arguments,
Yes.
closing
Please
comments.
let's try and haul this complete train wreck back on the topic.
As a player from a player's perspective, and as someone who this was my first over 200 FPS game, I brought with me a Harrier with the big spring. And in hindsight, I probably should have stuck to 200 FPS because while the Harrier was good at ranges that otherwise I wouldn't have ever dreamed of, and I did manage to eventually, after about 7 shots, tag Spectre at great range. My shoulder knew about it the next day. It's a very, very heavy prime. There probably are other options to get to 300 FPS without that heavy prime, but I think 200 is enough and just move closer. For me, is what I'd probably do. The rest of the event, I mostly used my Phoenix, and then I used my Griffin for the closer quarter stuff. My Protean for the closer quarter stuff. And 200 to 300, yeah, you get extra range, but I think the way I play, I would be better going closer range at 200. Also to note, I definitely noticed a big marked reduction in accuracy once I lost my B car. And my camera's gone again. Apologies, folks. But yeah.
On the subject of 200 things, Sarah got her hands on the Nexus Pro X via Reaper Mail, and she has now essentially fully incorporated that into her Dishforth lineup. So much so that I'm about to go and message TBR to get the is it Fidlock or Maglock facility for her to be able to put the Nightingale onto her belt, and then essentially Fidlock, yeah. So she can have the Pro X on a sling, Nightingale on the belt, and that's her now. She's sold on that. You know, I'm still going to run my shield, because I like doing it. But she has now basically been sold on springers, which I am so happy with because I know that prior to that model coming out, she had such a difficult time priming anything above stock. So that was my highlight.
I know she kind of suffered with that. Like the only other blaster that she's been able to prime at that level has been my M20X, which has a very, very beautifully long and easy prime, even at 300. But that is offset by the fact that it's several kilos of metal. So, we're not going to be dropping the FPS down for NSE because I do want to make use of the full sight options. But I did think it was very interesting to see that because there was a lot of kind of discussion of the going to 300 FPS, it's just going to turn to sniper duels, and that didn't happen.
No, I don't think it did.
Absolutely
because
not.
But I think that's also kind of comes down to because every single game had a movement requirement, either like an objective to go to, or indeed in the case of evac run, your entire objective is to run from one end of sight to the other. You couldn't afford to just kind of sit in one place. I think the only time it happened for me was right at the start of game 1, because I was like, I'm gonna stay here and I'm gonna be able to cover that entrance point. But then again, I got taken out by being flanked from 2 sides, because at the end of the day, when you have a high powered springer, your counter to that is multiple directions. Because there was a point when I had you and Wings kind of pinned, and then you went out of your cover and split. I'm like, I'm dead, because I have to pick one of you, and whichever.
And that was
And I went, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hit Wings, because I know Wings has the accuracy, and I'm gonna pray that while I'm shooting Wings, Boneheed won't be able to get the distance close that they need for their Phoenix to hit. And then you caught me with the Phoenix. You can be competitive in a 300 FPS game with a 200 FPS flywheeler quite happily.
And on the flip side, I think us using 300 FPS on the full site really shows off the fact that 200 on a single segment of the site is actually quite a good limit. And it's something that, having gone from Foam Dart Thunder at 100 FPS to FTT Pro and Nerf Mania and to Hull and back at 1 joule or 1.1 joule, FTT Pro's still trying to sort of feel out their limits. But like it's one of those things. But then having the jump up to Games of Foam Woodland events at 300 FPS, Dishforth like Ace Strike Force's 200 was a little bit of a weird one for me to get into until you find a rhythm that works for you.
Mhm.
And I think that's a thing. Nerf also requires a bit of experimentation, and at least as far as this event has gone, it was at least as good as KillFactory X. I feel.
Yeah. The thing that the game in terms of the games and then the rule design, I'm happy with that. The thing that crippled us there was the weather.
Yeah.
In terms of the actual enjoyment of everybody that attended, everybody went away saying they had a good time, which is all I can ask for. And we also learned some really important things about the site, which will feed into KillFactory 14 and beyond.
Yeah. I mean, again, from a player's perspective, I know I've said that about 6 times so far this video, but yeah, absolutely enjoyed the hell out of the entire event. Would have liked to have seen the LARP elements play through a little bit more so that we could see the Greebly in the box. But at the same time, I appreciate entirely why you made the decision to ask us, do we want to stop that? Because I think if we had done that run and would have finished off in the way you'd intended, we would have all been much more dead by the end of the event. So I think switching it up to...
And all it does is it requires people to come and play 14 so that they can find out what the storyline would have ended.
Exactly. Yeah, captive audience and all that. But no, the change to just fling some foam for the last couple of games really made the difference. You know, it brought the energy levels back up for me. And I'm not saying I wouldn't have enjoyed it had we carried on with the story, but I think there would have been a few. My camera's gone again. There would have been probably a lot less energy for the last couple of events. But yeah.
Oh wow!
That's
even worse than the
still one.
No, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. That is worse. That's still worse.
If you want to find out what happens on KillFactory 14, sorry, that.
I think
that a cut to black and the sound of tearing cartilage.
Yeah, I think we shall call it there. Thank you, David, once again for inviting us along. But I'm aware that at least 2 of the 4 of us have work in the morning. So
and I need to make this mop turn purple again.
Indeed. So yes, thank you everybody for joining me at very short notice, and for being so willing to talk about things there. This was episode 8. We will catch you all for episode 9, where we will be joined hopefully by Blind Geek again, where we'll be sitting chatting about the recent event, to Hull and back.
And then Tag Talk 10, Joker and I will be here to talk about 28 Darts later, the difference between American and British approaches to campus style HVZ. So make sure you hit the like and subscribe so that you can hear more about that. But on that note, I have been Spectre N.England, and I should go.
I've been Joker N.England, and I what? Oh, I've been Joker N.England, and I cut off people's sentences.
Can't take them anywhere.
That's like your fourth attempt. That's like your fourth attempt at leaving, and you still can't get it right, mate.
I scuppered Joker a little bit there, I must admit.
Oh no, it's fine.
Yeah. The whole like, share, subscribe thing, Spectre.
Like, subscribe, and maybe like future events as well. Looking at Bob Shack at Dishforth, which is in September, I believe.
Dishforth, come to Bob Shack because that's going to be several days of foam flinging fun.
Mental. And I do know that one of the things I have mentioned to Alan Mel is that if they would like to, they can have an episode to talk about Foam Fest. So that will possibly be happening. It's a case of whether or not I can try and fit everything into the recording schedule because, yeah,
Summer.
yeah, thank goodness
All
there's no
nerf, all
natural-
the time.
Yeah, well, no nerf all the time, as the tag for this channel is rapidly becoming the most content-free content on the internet.
Let's
Take
go.
care.
That bombshell.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Back to the studio.